Hey, friends. Today we're hanging out with Jamie Lerner, co-author of the book, The Ever-Loving Essence of You. And she puts a fresh spin on just about anything that anyone throws her way. Her unique and masterful ability to reframe even the most difficult situations is astounding. All of a sudden, her biggest nightmare comes her greatest pleasure, and she lovingly helps herself and others sift through contrast, right? And find that small opening of light. She has been quickly known to help people find clarity. She's unassuming, reassuring, and seemingly without any sense of ego. Jamie is able to put everyone and everything at ease. Well, that feels good. We're in your presence. Jamie is an asset to any corporate setting. She is easily able to untangle the issues at hand and move along into helping with facilitation in a service and solution-based platform for creative, productive, good feeling collaborations. Jamie can most often be seen working with individuals, children, adults, and couples, as well as with small groups. She never positions herself as the expert of anything and is always reminding us that it is me, you, it is ourselves who know our best selves. Always. Jamie, thanks for being here.
Hello, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so I think your stance or your point about like never assuming yourself as the expert makes so much sense for the work that you do. Now, I'm curious though, if you would consider yourself the expert of your own story, or if there are some things or some places where you do position yourself as the expert on things outside of work, maybe.
Well, no, I think that I am my own greatest resource. And I believe that each and every one of us has every single answer that they need within. And so what I like to do is to assist people in assisting themselves so that they can look inward and tap into that endless amount of knowledge about themselves and for themselves.
Coaching 101, Jamie. I feel like that is a breath of fresh air though, because myself included in this coaching space, a lot of times, or the reason why I quit coaching, to be totally honest, is because I wasn't coaching. I was consulting. I was telling people what to do. And I think you are truly a breath of fresh air in saying that, no, like we all have it within us. So to me, you sound like a coach and a guide. And I'm curious if you've always kind of had that sense and you've always been more of that reflection for people, or what really helped you step into this as your livelihood? When did this start for you?
Well, I was born with this knowing, and unfortunately, I was very difficult as a child, a young adult, as an adult now, because I've always heard my own voice so clearly and only my own voice. And I've always been true to that. So I knew that I wanted to be in some helping profession, and I loved the interactions between people and the interpersonal dynamics. And so I got my master's in social work and went on to do psychotherapy. And that was where it kind of shifted for me. I had a psychotherapy practice for a while, but all along knew that I wasn't really helping people. We were always looking backwards, and I felt people wanted to move on. So after many years, I gave it up and I traveled and I studied, and now I do something really, really different, which is the integrative approach to well-being. And it is once again assisting people in assisting themselves.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I totally relate to the story of finding those more traditional paths, or the paths that have like a master's degree behind them, like social work and, psychotherapy. And I'm curious if there are things from those practices, right? Like what are the pieces of social work and your other experience, your other degrees, what are the pieces of that you still bring with you into coaching? Because I think the best coaches are the ones who have like a breadth of experience and they've studied many different things. So what are the things that you brought with you into coaching?
Well, I ask people that if we are going to look at what happened back then at least do it from your right here and now perspective, because we are older. We are not small anymore. And I think that we're able to see it in a different way, in a way that maybe we can actually attach some strength to it and some appreciation of that experience. So that is I think helpful for people,
Yeah.
because most people cannot just not look back. But if we can do it and reframe it in such a way that it becomes our superpower, then we're much more able to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my experiences, I went through therapy for an eating disorder, and I got really frustrated with it because it was like I was like obsessed with food, body, and weight. So I just wanted to move forward and like go to the next thing and like run, like truly. And so much of the therapy was like, well, let's find out why this happened, and like all these root causes and all these childhood experiences and all these like parental dynamics. And like I learned a lot from that, but it didn't help me move forward. So I love what you're saying around like, okay, find it, recognize it, and then bring it into where you are now and reframe it for it to be your superpower. Like that is amazing. That is not something I heard on my talk therapy couch ever. No. So I love that you're blazing your own trail. And I would love to maybe hear kind of, if it were me, right? Or if we were going to think about an example of someone, like how does that look in practice to find the trauma from the past and then make it your superpower? Are there questions we can ask ourselves? Are there exercises we can do? Look at me. I'm still like the type A, like, how do I work this process?
Well, I think a lot of our ability to create and live our dream is to manage our thoughts and feelings. And we can only do that for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So if we begin to get swept up in something that had happened back then, and it's a pattern because we tend to go there often, we have to ask ourselves, is this serving me in my now? Because typically it's not. Typically, it has nothing to do with where a person is right here and now. And that would be a great question for someone to ask themselves. And then, if it is not serving you, but you can't let it go, how can you once again look at it from where you are right now? How does that relate in any way to where you are right now? Is it like a familiar feeling? Whatever it is that you can pinpoint, and then use it. Use it in your life. Oftentimes it gets really lost in translation and people can't go that far with it.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to reframe it in such a way that it will fit into where they are.
I feel like this is what you're saying in that evolution of how we can control or manage our thoughts, choose the ones that we want to bring in, doing those reframes. Over the last couple of months, I've committed to intermittently 20-minute journaling sessions. And I've really seen how when I can get my thoughts onto paper, or for me, a Google document, because my fingers type faster than they can keep up. But when I see those thoughts, or I see those beliefs outside of my own mind, they're much easier to reframe. Now, I'd imagine you might see a similar phenomenon in just working with people, right? Like them reflecting out to another person, and not an expert, but a guide, right? You as their facilitator. What are those the best ways, or other ways that we can get those thoughts out so that we can work with them? Because they're just constant for me.
Right, it's that endless loop. I think for everybody it's different. So I think each individual has to figure out what is the best way for them to feel complete with a thought. And it is different for everybody. But if it is writing or typing or speaking, whatever it is, I highly suggest to people that they relax into that. But the time limit, I think, is really helpful too. You set aside X amount of time. And I think that could be a great tool for somebody to sit with a timer, because it can't be a loop. It has to end,
Yeah.
So hopefully it'll end feeling better than it began.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. I think just this awareness, right? That thoughts are always changing. It might be playing in the background all of the time, but when you feel something, dis-ease or frustration or feeling you don't want to feel, first of all, you know you can change it because you have lots of life experience of feeling lots of different ways. But what you just said, Jamie, of like relax into it, that's kind of scary. Okay, I'm feeling frustrated. Let me just sit with it, right? And so what we're layering on here is like being with a timer or giving yourself some sort of like processing exercise. Because I feel like the same thing happens when you're starting a meditation practice. For me, I was like, just sit here. What do you mean, just sit here? Like, this is the torture, just sitting here. Like, just relax into it, Jamie. Like, whatever. I don't have time for that, you know? So I think that's a really great like permission slip to give people who want to start playing with improving their mindset from the most basic starting point.
Well, the other thing too is give yourself permission if you're not going to let it go. Then make it a choice so you're not a victim to it. So now you're saying, I'm choosing to revisit this over and over and over again. And I know it's not serving me, but I'm doing it anyway. And I really applaud that because you're taking ownership and you're no longer a victim to anything that had happened to you. And that feels good too, to make the choice.
That choice word is so powerful. A few months ago, our house had all these water problems, like hot water stopped, and then the water company literally like stopped filling our water. It was just like, are you kidding me? How can there be another water thing? It was like a comic strip, right? We happen to live in Mexico. And so our landlord, who's privy to mindset work, he has like a great perspective on life, in my opinion. He was like, well, this is what we chose. We chose Mexico. Like, we chose to live in this country that you never know when stuff might go wrong. And it's just kind of another thing, another day. And it's been so much more fun. Like, oh, great. Now we have freezing cold water and we chose this. And it's comical instead of being the victim and wondering, why is this happening to us again? That's really just like simple day-to-day word choice. And our thoughts start with words for most of us, right? And then what else? We think it, we believe it, we take action, we don't. Like, how do you see the impact of doing this thought work? What does it lead to for your clients or people you work with?
A lot of laughter.
Love it. Yes.
A lot less resistance.
Mm.
And a really nice feeling of forward momentum.
Wow. Yeah. I love that. Laughter being one of the first things, because I feel the same way, like with my coach or with my journal. It's like, that is not even logical. Like, no one else would land on that thought. And here I am running around thinking I'm the victim because my hot water went out and I'm making it like this big deal, you know? So I love that. And I think that's really like, I don't know if it's not a secret to life. It's not what we're here for, but it's like, if we brought more fun into decision-making or frustrations, I feel like things would just resolve a lot faster. Like you said, just forward momentum, less resentment, less like.
We take ourselves way too seriously. There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then now on my mind is like, and on a global level, right? If we all knew these tools or we had more emotional regulation, like, yeah, we could really change the world with this thought work, right?
But we could only do this for ourselves. And I think that's really important to know and to understand as well, because when you're in a relationship with somebody, sometimes you expect them to know what you're thinking or know.
Or if you just like me, this is how I do it. What do you mean you don't take a list to the grocery store? Drives me nuts. Yeah. Oh, really good, really good. So for you, Jamie, you know, you've transitioned your career several times from social working and therapy and now working with groups and couples and individuals. So what's on the radar for you? What impact are you still looking to make in the coming years?
For me, it's just moment to moment and to remain connected to myself and to continue to be the living, breathing example of all that's possible. Because
clear.
Yeah, I think as helping professionals, we need to walk our talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And who would be the perfect person for you to connect with? Who are the folks listening that they're like, oh yeah, I need some Jamie in my life. Like, that's how I want to be too. How do you work with people, or what are the best ways for them to continue this conversation with you?
No one needs me, that's for sure.
Ah,
And yes, I am a lovely option, and I think that anyone that feels stuck in a moment, but knowing that the next moment you could be completely unstuck. So someone who really wants something other than what they have.
hmm.
But there aren't a lot of people like that, I have to say. Most people are fine with what they have, and that's okay too.
Wow. Well, Jamie, how can they at least stay connected? Do you have a website or a place that they
I
can
do.
connect
I
with you?
have a website. It's
Perfect.
www.jamie-lerner.com.
Jamie.lerner.com. We will link to that in the show notes. I feel more relaxed. I feel more in this moment, just having this conversation with you, Jamie. So keep up the great work, energy, whatever you call it. I'm grateful you've shared it with us today. And listeners, I'll be back next week with another inspiring guest that will help you make your dream life and business your real life.